So we are now recording. Thank you to all of our admitted students who are joining us today for our Student Life panel. We have a collection of some of our student ambassadors here to talk to you today about all of their wonderful experiences at Quest and their wonderful selves. So the questions we'll ask are sort of the most frequently asked questions or topics that we tend to get our prospective students asking our student ambassadors. So we figured what a perfect way to answer it here. The first question that they're going to answer is super simple. It's who they are, what year they're in, if they have a question, what is it, or if they have a keystone project or anything like that, what is it? And we'll start with Keelani at the top.
Hi, my name is Keelani. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm from a town in northern British Columbia. I'm currently a second-year student, and my question is, does herstory decolonize? And I do not have a keystone yet.
And next we'll go to Vasi.
Hi, my name is Vasi. I'm a fourth year by credits, but I am a transfer student. And my question is, how do we build community? And I'm currently in the process of writing my keystone, exciting, which is on the history of the longest legacy event we have on Quest campus called Cabaret and its impact on Quest community.
Fantastic. And Rayan.
Hi, my name is Rayan Chanda. I'm a first/second year because I transferred, and I don't currently have a keystone question, but I'm interested in like economics and that kind of sphere of things.
Awesome, thank you. We'll do Yinzi and then Minoka right after that. Sorry, Minauka.
My name is Yunzi. I'm currently in my fourth year at Quest. My question is, do I belong? Though recently I've been asking more of where do you call home? And my keystone is in the works, and it is going to be an art installation that encourages people to explore spaces and how they feel in relation to that space. But it's not done yet at all.
And my name is Minauka. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm a 3.5 year. My question is, how do narratives bring people together? And it has changed a couple of times, but it's looking at writing and cultural anthropology mainly, and I do not know what to do for Keystone just yet.
Great, thank you everyone for sharing. The next question we have is a bit more of a fun one to get to know a bit more about each of you. So everyone will answer, and we'll do it in the exact same order, but I will still prompt you by your name. So the question is just, what is a favorite class or favorite memory in a class that you've had at Quest? Again, we'll start with Keela.
My favorite class is one that I took in September, which was a class called Indigenous Women and Critical Indigenous Pedagogy. I really appreciated this class because it opened my eyes to a lot more and set me on the path that I'm choosing to pursue for my question.
Fantastic. Yes, Vasi. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yunzi, Vasi. My favorite class that I've taken at Quest, I think, would have to be Biodiversity of British Columbia. It is one of the foundation requirements, or one of the 3 life science foundation requirements that you have to take. And it just allowed for me to get a better grounding of the space that I'm at. And I'm currently still in Squamish, grounded for the time being. We'll see what happens in a couple of months when I graduate. But I just really appreciated getting to know BC and finding out about its history, and also delving into the research of the biosphere that it has to offer.
Great, thank you. And Rayan?
Yeah, so one of my favorite classes this year was actually rhetoric, which is one of the requirement classes that you take in the beginning. For our class, my teacher had the theme of the Flat Earth Society, and so we kind of looked at like how they were kind of convincing people that the Earth is flat, and we even in fact had like a video conference with like the head of the whole kind of Flat Earth Society. So it was like a really fun class to kind of look at rhetoric and how it's being applied in like, you know, something like the Flat Earth Society.
That is very cool. And people watching, you may have noticed everyone's face when he said rhetoric kind of go in a surprised look. That's because that is very rare that rhetoric is the favorite class of anyone, because it kind of kicks your butt a bit. But that sounds like a really cool course for him. Next, we'll have Yinzi and Minauka answer this question.
I think my favorite class, which honestly I think set me on the path of my question, was the class I took just out of rhetoric called Chinese Film and Transnationalism. It's taught by Faye, who's currently my mentor, and I think it's one of my favorite classes because we got to produce lots of short films and then a long film project with groups in that class, and it was really fun to experience my first class with a mixture of years. So there were first, second, third, and fourth years in that class, and to build friendships via film projects where you had to hold the camera and get really close to someone's face.
And for me, I don't know if it was exactly my favorite class, but my first fun concentration, which was anthropology of the body, in which I was introduced to actually like dive into anthropology. And we read a book that's called Vida, Life in a Social Abandonment. And that's where I learned about just ethnographic writing and how beautiful it is.
Fantastic. Thank you. The next question we have has to do with sort of student experience outside of class. At this point, admitted students have heard a ton about the in-class experience and how that operates and how it happens from both their counselor as well as faculty. So really, with students, they want to know, like, but what about the social life, everything else? So outside of class, what activities do you sort of use to fill up your time? What clubs and groups are you involved in? What's your life look like? And Kalani will answer this question first. So Keelan.
So outside of class, I really love to be involved with events on campus, and I really try to be a part of a lot of student activities. So over the last 2 years, I've been a coordinator for the drag show on campus, a show called Naked, which gives space for women-aligned folk to share their stories. And also I've helped with Cabaret, which, as Vasi has mentioned, is Quest's largest student-run art showcase with both performance and visual arts. I also volunteer in the Arts Bay, and I was helping to co-run a club called the Body Justice Club. And then lastly, for next year, I have been elected as the Minister of Arts on CUSA, which is Quest University Student Association. So I'll be there for that.
Great. And next we'll have Rayanne answer this question.
Yeah, so for me, this was my first year at Quest, so I kind of made a lot of like really good friends. So one of the main things I did outside of class was kind of hang out with my friends, and you know, because Quest is like kind of on, there's like all the, you know, mountains and everything around you, so like we'd like, I don't know, go out and like go for runs. And then one other thing that I'm a very slow eater, so I usually go to the cafeteria and then I end up spending way too much time there, because I'll start eating and one of my friends will come over and then they'll be done and then they'll kind of be sick of, you know, I'm taking too long, so then they'll leave and then the next one will come. So I kind of think I spent a lot of time this year kind of, I guess, socializing. And next year I'm excited to be part of the newspaper on campus called The Mark. And yeah, so I think that this year, one of the great things is that because it's such a small school, and especially your year, you make a lot of like close friends, and it kind of helps, you know, you have a lot of great relationships with a lot of people, and it's kind of, I think, what I kind of really appreciated.
Awesome. That is a great answer, and I can definitely relate to spending too much time in the CAF. So even as I was a student years ago. The next question we have is just sort of, you know, all students at Quest live on campus. And so a big question that comes with that is like, what are some of the joys, the challenges of living, learning, and working together? And we'll have Yinzi answer this question first, and then Keelan as well. So Yinzi.
I think one of my biggest joys of living on campus, which is something I'm coming to terms with right now as we live off campus and apart from each other, is the fact that you are surrounded by the people that are in your friend group, but also in your class group, and that the discussions you have in class always travel out of the classroom, and you'll exit class and then go to lunch and continue talking, but what you've been learning in class will start mixing with what your friends have been learning in class, and then all of a sudden you're discussing things like how is art involved in biochemistry and in the rendering of scientific illustrations or something, or vice versa. You start going to lunch and then you go to class, and in class all you're thinking is, oh my god, we were discussing some heavy hitting topics at lunch. But I do miss that ability to just physically see my friends and to have these really thought-provoking conversations that always make me want to be more curious and more passionate. And of course, there are challenges to this, which one of them is the fact that if you do have a falling out with anyone in any which way, it can be really hard because you still get to see them every day, but you definitely learn how to people work because you do a lot of group work at Quest, and so you'll learn a lot of social skills and a lot of ways to mitigate uncomfortable situations, which will continue coming up for the rest of your life.
Thank you, Lindsay. Next, we will have Hilani answer this question.
I mean, as we all know, as you live on campus with everyone, you really build a community. So I think that it's really amazing to always have people around. You're always constantly making new friends. You can always find someone to cook with, to dance with, to collaborate with, to have discussions with. So I think that that is really amazing. I guess some of the challenges are that there's always someone around. Sometimes it can feel like it's difficult to be alone, and if you are alone, you might feel like you're missing out because there's always so many things going on campus. At least for me, I find it very difficult to slow down and take time for myself because I always want to try to be a part of everything. So I think that that's the big thing, is trying to learn how to work on taking care of yourself in these situations.
Fantastic, thank you. One of the other sort of big questions that I think leads very nicely from what you just said, Kalani, is when you are faced with a challenge or a sort of a difficult situation or time at Quest, what are some of the resources and opportunities that you have available for you as a student? And Vasily said that she would like to answer this question.
Yes, absolutely. So first and foremost, the number one remedy is large amounts of tea. Ain't that the truth? Sitting at somebody's table and having a cup of tea with friends and just venting about the world and the class and just about everything. And that is the number one remedy for the troubles and challenges. And I always, during panel discussions, I like to bring up and promote going to counseling services on campus, because it is a very wonderful and unstigmatized space. And as Quest students, we have an opportunity to get 10 sessions per semester for free, which I heavily utilize because it is just great to talk to somebody who just is there to listen and is there to offer an advice from like a third perspective. Yeah, I'm actually scheduled for one tomorrow because now they're doing it online because they're great and they want to support us even in these strange and challenging times. Yeah, these are a couple.
Thank you, Vasily. And on a similar note, this next question is looking at how do you balance your schoolwork, co-curricular involvement, and personal well-being, both at Quest, on the block plan, and everything to do with that sort of structure. And Minauka indicated that she would answer this question.
Yeah, I think that on the one hand, this depends a little bit on which block you're in. Sometimes you'll be in a very intense block, so it might be more difficult to balance like all of these things at once. But it also comes with practice. I feel like as you go through your first year and you go into your second year, you learn to adapt to it a lot more, and you know how much time you can spend on one thing and also what is worth it to you. Maybe if you're super fascinated and really into one block, you'll really spend a lot of time doing academic work. But if you decide to do some more events, you'll spend some less time doing one or the other. For me personally, I feel like like what I said before, was that in second year I really learned how to take care of myself. I'll also decide what is important of me versus like deciding to be part of everything. So then I decided to be part of the mark, for example, which is relevant to me and was interesting to me. So I would say that largely it's time and that will take you to figure it out, and it's different for every student.
Great, thank you both very much. Another common question we get is about Squamish, and students are really interested in, like, are we kind of siloed off in just like this thing that exists like near Squamish but aren't actually part of that, or are we actually sort of getting engaged and involved? So we'll go to Vasi first on this question, but how have you connected with the Squamish community outside of class?
So I think Minauka's and my answers are going to be quite similar because we went through a similar experience of actually staying in Squamish over the summer, this past summer. And we lived together and we worked in Squamish, and it allowed for us to meet a whole bunch of really rad humans that we still see around. And I will be going on the bus to down the hill and see somebody I know, and we'll just catch up on what's going on in each other's lives. And Squamish is quite a small community, so we're only about 19,000, reaching 20,000 people, and it's not hard, and it doesn't take long to get to know important people, and then those people introduce you to other people, and just before you know it, you know a lot of people. And also there's a lot of very active and prominent Facebook groups, such as, for example, Women of Squamish, which I only joined this past year, but it just became a lifesaver because if you need anything, the Squamish women will be there for you. And I think it's great because social media is uniting this community, especially in these difficult times of COVID. Yes, that is me.
Great, thank you. And Minauka will add on this.
I think another one is volunteering as well. There's a couple of events that happen throughout the year. Like there's the multicultural festival that happens every year that students can volunteer with. And then there's a lot more things, of course, in the spring than there is in the fall. There's, for example, there's a refresh market with local vendors that students have volunteered at before. There's the Arts Council in Squamish. So there's a couple of and the farmers market. So there's definitely a couple of things that you can get involved in the community.
Yeah, and the Women's Center and the Helping Hands Society. There are so many like wonderful charities as well that you can get involved in. And a whole bunch of students also decided to go inside their academic work with their volunteer work. So for example, like Dakota is writing his keystone on him volunteering with the Squamish Helping Hands Society. Yeah, so it kind of just all comes together like that.
Great, thank you. The next question we have is about something that has surprised you about attending class. Perhaps you didn't quite realize when you were an admitted student, but have realized things that kind of surprised you. And we'll go with Yinzi first.
I think that what has surprised me about attending Quest is the fact that I can do all the things I'm interested in. A large part of the reason why I came to Quest in the first place was because coming out of high school, I had so many things that I love and was interested in and wanted to do. And the idea of going to a university for 4 years and having to pick like one thing right away, or even in like a year from now, just picking one thing as my major and perhaps having a minor really scared me because I felt like that would close off a lot of doors. And I have so many things that I'm curious about. And so one thing that keeps surprising me, but in a really good way, is the fact that I can take a new subject every month and still find the way in which it links back to the main chord, which is now my question. And in my first 2 years when I didn't have a question, there were still all of these connections that I could see being made between things that I used to hold as very far apart. And so that's been a really lovely surprise in knowing that we have the ability to continue being passionate, even if we don't pick just one thing. especially when we don't have to pick just one thing. And I really love it.
Thank you, Lindsay. And next we'll have Ray answer this question.
Yeah, so one of the things that I was surprised with was I previously was at a big box university where I was like in classes with like 500 people. And then when I did my first tour at Quest, they mentioned how they call professors tutors, and at first, I thought it might have been, it felt like kind of like a gimmick or something. But then after having spent the whole year at Quest, I realized that it is actually really true, because like all of my tutors, my tutors were, they didn't feel like they were like the professors I had at my old university, and it was like a discussion and a conversation rather than just kind of like them professing as they were really like, the line we like to use is tutoring or learning. Yeah, I think that was one of the really the big things that I was very surprised at how true that was. And then one other thing is kind of like I just when I came, everybody kept mentioning how like the view was so amazing, and I don't know if I maybe I'm the only one, but it is really amazing, but I didn't really understand like the significance of that. And then like maybe halfway through the year, I looked like on the way to the cafeteria at like the mountains, and I was like, okay, wow, like every day you like get to actually see this. And I was like, yeah, I finally understand what everybody was talking about. So that was like kind of side note, something I found surprising.
James, you're
muted. Yes, I was going to say. I was also surprised to hear that you had almost half a year before you had that moment. Usually it's a lot quicker, but I'm glad that you had that. It definitely becomes quite iconic over 4 years. I have one last question for everyone to kind of touch on, and it's just an open-ended. Is there anything else that you would like to share or tell, or any piece of advice that you would want to give to our incoming class before they start this fall? And we'll start with Kilani, as she has spoken from the furthest back.
I guess for advice, I would say that even if things may seem scary and this may be a transition that it's a big decision, follow your instincts, because coming to this school was the best thing that's ever happened to me, and it's really given me a family and a place where I've been able to develop into my true self. So I think that's all I want to say about Quest.
Great. Thank you so much, Kilani. Next we'll have Vassy to this question.
So I'm coming to the end of my degree at Quest, and I know, and I'm looking back and I'm thinking about everything that the school has taught me, and there's a lot to say, but I'll keep it short. I have experienced going to another institution, and I have experienced and thought about going to a much larger school, and then ended up settling on the smaller one, and then ended up transferring to Quest, which is all to say that I've seen a lot of different institutional models, but no institution that I've attended or I've visited has taught people how to think, as opposed to granting them a mastery over subject. And Quest does exactly that. It teaches us how to think independently. And if this is the type of education that you are seeking and not finding in other institutions, you'll find it at Quest.
Great, thank you, Vassy. Next we will have Leanne to this question.
Yeah, so for me, I've also been to a couple universities, and I've always kind of when I heard the news about the school was like closing and we had to all move out, and because of COVID and everything, it was like, I think the first time ever where I was sad that I actually had to like kind of leave school. And I think that's kind of like a reflection of Quest, because this year I've actually never been a very kind of life sciences kind of student, and this year I've actually, just because of the way the schedule worked, I ended up taking like 3 life sciences, you know, one after another, and I actually really enjoy doing them. And that has never been the case for me ever. And I've done a lot of biology and all of that. So I think one of the great things about this school is that even if, you know, you're not good at a subject, or maybe you just haven't been introduced to it, it's a great place where you can kind of be introduced to like all of these things that maybe perhaps either you're maybe afraid to kind of dip your toes into because you might have thought it was too hard or something. And because of the foundation program where you have to take everything, I think it's a great way to kind of really, you know, be like a, you know, an independent thinker, because you like actually got to learn all of these things. And I think that's kind of one of the great things about Quest.
Great. And next we'll have Lindsay.
Kind of to go off of Rand's point about being courageous in the classroom, I would also like to say, don't be afraid to be courageous in joining things outside of the classroom. One of the best decisions I made in my first year was joining the leadership team for Cabaret, and I've been on it every year since. And doing that in my first year has given me the confidence to take on other projects, be it big or small. And it has really taught me a lot about what makes a community and also how the community gives back. And so don't be afraid to sign up for things even as a first year, especially as a first year, because that's the only way things continue at Quest.
Yeah, I would say that in terms of community as well, similar to what has been said, is I've like made some of the best friendships here at Quest simply because of the fact that the community is so small. But not just that, also it's just a certain type of people that hold you here. When I was on exchange at Amsterdam University College, which is also a small institution, it was so different. So I've never experienced that vibe anywhere else. And yeah, that's one of the most beautiful things.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of hopefully your busy and safe at home lives to chat with myself as well as our future Questies as well. Thank you, and